I'll share a little bit about my story, and in hopes of it shedding some light on why I feel that storytelling is absolutely an essential piece to movement building and to shifting the narrative. Um, it's really time that we start telling our own stories as young people, as the folks who are going to inherit these issues, as the folks who are stepping um, into our more agency. I don't know how old some of you are. I feel like you may be between 18 and between the Sustainus age range, but um, I want to share a little bit about my experience in when I first applied, and Morgan had completely shifted the application process. And at first, I was kind of confused as to how this could be. I almost had this reaction of feeling like storytelling wasn't valid enough. Like I needed to use my brain to really analyze things through a scientific political lens. And so the journey of storytelling and how Sustina supported me in shifting my own relationship to what narratives I've been schooled to give more power to really helped me step into really owning my own story. And so for my creative challenge, what I decided to write about was filling the hole of being first generation, coming from migrant communities. It was really powerful for this process to enable me to really explore my personal narrative outside of the common narrative. At that time, I was interning for Earth Justice as a communications intern, and was just heavily saturated by media that was very ivory tower, very disconnected, very number heavy, very stats heavy. And being that I had access to publishing blogs, I pitched a blog that was more personal, in giving weight to my lived experience as coming from a farm worker community, where that's a narrative that I was like, what does migrant justice have anything to do with climate justice? And this process really helped me examine that, to the point that when I wrote the blog, a lot of the folks in Earth Justice were really into it. And I was like, what? You're into this? This is just my story. I didn't know that it had such power and such, I guess for folks who are so used to reading the same boring news, it was really powerful for them to hear a new perspective and be like, whoa, I never thought of it that way. So that kind of began an ongoing journey for me, which has been learning how to unlearn what narratives we've historically given power to. And also stepping into co-creating new narratives that will help inform our movements and help insert hope into myself, into my community members, into other youth who are hearing these are sometimes disabled by these really disempowering narratives of how every month it's the hottest, it's breaking records of how hot it is. And yeah, I guess to wrap that up, I want to just encourage you all to really try something different, and to be brave in recognizing that storytelling will probably be the only thing that saves us if we're to remain empowered and in good hopes as we create the new narratives that are necessary for our survival.
New narratives that are necessary for our survival. Yay. Letting that sink in. And yeah, I also wanted to share a little bit about what storytelling has meant to me in the past few years. Well, first, I just kind of wanted to ask everybody by like show of hands if there's a person in your life that inspired you to be part of this movement. Someone who showed you that there was a way to contribute. Yeah. And so that's what I think about when I think about what it means to tell our story, is that there's someone out there where you will be that person for them. And it's by sharing what activated you and sharing what brought you into this work and sharing what keeps you going that someone someday will raise their hand and be like, oh yeah, it was this person that really inspired me. And kind of how I really dove into practicing that was actually back in 2015 when COP21 Paris, the UN climate talks, was happening. I decided to take a storytelling journey to the UN, and I actually spent 6 months living on a bicycle with Garrett, who's the executive director of Sustain Us, and we visited communities in 11 countries, staying with activists and grassroots organizing communities and organizations en route to Paris, and just really just asking people this question, like, why is it that you do what you do? And so often people would respond to us like, what do you mean? Like, I can't do anything else. Like, this is my only option. Like, this is, like, my survival is totally bound up with this work. And that was kind of what inspired this challenge to happen the following year, was seeing that being able to ground ourselves in why it is that we do what we do opens space for other people to step up into their own why and their own stake and their own journey. So that's what I wanted to share. And I have a million stories from that time, which I won't share here, but something I did want to say was when I led the Sustain Us Challenge the following year, that I got feedback from young people all across the country that this was their like favorite part of the process, that the kind of risk that you take in like going out on a limb and being like, oh, I'm going to write about what I do for like my campus newspaper, or I'm going to go on my hometown radio show, or even just I'm going to go live on Facebook and tell all my friends about why I'm organizing around this issue. Like, that risk is worth it and will stretch you to a new work. So I wanted to say that. And then the next piece I wanted to share is around how to get your piece in front of other people's eyes. Because, yeah, who, just by show of hands, like, who started kind of drafting or thinking about the story that they want to tell? Cool. And maybe you've started thinking about like, like, who do I want to read this? Anyone been thinking about that? Like, who do I want to see this? So that's really like the most important question to ask yourself at this point, because writing one's own story or communicating it in any way can be like a cathartic process. Like, there's deep like ritual to be found in telling your own story for yourself. And this challenge is about getting it out there for other people to see. So the first question to ask yourself is, who do I want to have see this? And one way to think about that might be like, who is that person who one day might say, it was this person that inspired me to do what I do? It might be like students who are younger at your high school, at your college. It might be like people that are newer to the organizing community that you're part of, or it might be people in your town who know about the issue but haven't yet got involved with the organizing. So thinking about who is that person who could be like activated by my story, and then thinking about, once you have that person in mind, what are they reading? Like, where are they getting their news? Like, where are they listening to their podcasts and reading their blogs, and just thinking about like, what is the media that is reaching the people that I want to be reaching? So that's number one, thinking about who you want to have read it. Like, who would be most powerful for you to reach. And then number 2, thinking about what are those people reading? What media are they consuming of any sort? And then the third step beyond that would be like, what sort of access do you have to those media platforms? And so if what you're seeing is, oh, the people in my community mostly consume media on like social media, then you might say, okay, well, I think I'm going to do a Facebook Live from the page for this campaign that I'm hoping people will be activated by. Or if your answer is like, I really want to reach people that read our hometown newspaper, then you might think through like, oh yeah, like my cousin is a journalist and could maybe like talk to the people about getting this involved. So starting to think through like, what are your connections to the mediums that you want to speak through? And then once you've thought through that and you have an idea of who it is that you want to reach out to, the editor of the blog, editor of the newspaper, the admin of the social media page, like whoever it is that like holds the key to getting your piece out there to the world, then comes the stage that we call pitching. I'm going to try and do a little stereotype. How do I do this?
Could mute themselves and would cut out the echo of that.
Share screen.
Here it is. Share screen. Can you all see that? I see some nods. Cool. Okay, so y'all, this is a really depressing pitch. You ready for this? This is me pitching a story about Hillary winning the 2016 election to an outlet. It did not go well. I never wrote this piece, as you might guess, but I thought it was a good example of a pitch, so I'm bringing it up here. And I wrote this one actually live from COP22 in Marrakesh with Niria and Daniel. So what I did here was kind of put some little headings on each paragraph to kind of explain what I'm doing while I'm pitching. So you'll want to start the subject of your email, pitch, : pretty simple. And then in a few words, what it is that you're pitching. And yeah, it might include who you are, where you're writing from, what it's about. It might say like, my personal story about like the power plant in our town, or it might say like why I became a student activist or something like that. And just to back up a step, I should say that email might not be the best approach. Like if the person you're reaching out to is like the admin of a Facebook page and you know them, like call them and be like, hey, do you think I can do this? This is more for someone that's a little bit a step removed from you that maybe you haven't met before, or you're needing to kind of more formally introduce yourself. Is this helpful, y'all? Can I have a little like wave? Yes? Cool. Let's keep going. So the first paragraph of your pitch is either going to be reminding them who you are if you've met them before, or introducing yourself and naming how you got their email, essentially. So you might say like, hey, Matt, I got your email from my friend Lisa, who wrote a piece for you last month. Or like, hi, Jenny, I reached out to you on Twitter and you told me to email me. Something like that. So just kind of a top line, like introducing yourself and how you come to be writing them. And then the next section is kind of the nitty gritty of what you want to do for them. And so this is an example of pitching a piece of writing. And so you want to say how long it is that you're going to write for them. That's really relevant for an editor or someone that's keeping a blog, because yeah, they want to know how much you're going to write for them, because they don't want to publish your 52-page essay and they need to fill their paper too. So saying how long it is, and also by when you can get it to them. Really specifically, especially for something like a newspaper or an online website that has like a turnaround time, they want to know by when. And then this is like your 1-sentence version of what it's going to be about. So that's kind of that first little paragraph. And then the next little paragraph is like, why are you the one to write this? Like if in your pitch you're saying like, I want to pitch like 900 words or a video or a piece of art to you about like, you know, this political issue in our city. In your next paragraph, you're going to want to say like how you're involved with that issue, like why you're the right person to be writing that piece, because they always want the best, most credible person who's speaking from personal experience to be writing about the thing. So that would come next. And in that paragraph, you might also put stuff like, here's an example of where I've written or made art about this before. And you could like link to some like previous work of yours so they know you're legit. And then the next paragraph will be just like a little bit of like a deeper dive. So if they've made it to this point in reading your email, they're probably a little bit interested. So you can give them a little bit more. And yeah, tell them kind of what you would write about in a deeper way. You can also see I made a little note here about like, we have a photographer, so I could get you images to go with this. So you can think through like, if you're pitching like a podcast episode, maybe you would say like, I also have like a graphic you could feature with the podcast, or like, I'm happy to write up the description for you, or just kind of thinking about like, what is all the work they're going to have to do to put this story out to the world, and how can I help them with it? And then the last piece would be asking them to get back to you. So here I wrote ASAP, which basically meant in the next few hours, but you might want to say to someone like, I'm happy to do this exclusively for you if you get back to me within the next 48 hours or something like that. Or I will turn to another outlet, something like that, and then giving them the best contact information for you. Whew, that was so many words.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add about pitching it?
Yeah, I just want to note that about what Morgan said about creating a timeline of like when to hear back. And I think a lot of times some of the blocks that I personally experience, and I know other folks who I've talked to experience, is feeling like our story isn't sexy enough or it isn't good enough. And I hope that in a longer conversation we can move past that block and really see that we as like pitchers, as generators of content, as holders of stories, we have power and agency in leveraging like, hey, if you don't get back to me in 2 hours, like I'm just gonna like give this to the next outlet that responds to me. So like really trusting and having the confidence that the stories that we hold and that the narratives that we are generating in the moment are sexy and that people want them. Like this is probably like pitcher's confidence that takes a little bit of like tries to get past, but yeah, really just trusting that these are narratives worth telling, and that and really approaching the pitch as like you're making them an offer. Like Morgan said, a lot of these folks just have a column and they just want to find something to fill it with. Like sometimes there's pitches that go straight in, like the editor just puts it straight in or tweaks a little thing. So we're essentially doing the job for some folks when we do this. So like to really, I want to emphasize the importance in like really owning our power as like storytellers and as keepers of narratives, and not feeling like, oh, will you please do this favor for me? It's like, no, I have an offering for you and this is the terms. Like if you don't get back to me, I'm just going to pass it on to the next person that gets back to me. So really just holding that truth.
What she said. Yeah. I'm wondering if now would be a good moment to see if there's any questions in the room. I know we kind of just shared out a lot of like details about what this might look like, and I know it can be intimidating and confusing. So would really welcome your questions.
Can you share that document with us? Is there a way to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll make that.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is this creative challenge a two-part? I don't know.
Yeah, and also like if you Google how to pitch, there's also a lot of really incredible resources online. So that's also a good place to go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll say one more thing. Something that really helped me when I was creating this, because it takes a lot of courage, right? And like we do want to be mindful of like who our audience is, like who we want, who we're expecting on the other end. That's one avenue. And I also want to present like a different one, which was what totally informed me to really go inside myself and explore, like, what do I just want to say? Like, what is my absolute truth? And to really trust that process of sitting with yourself and examining your own narratives and building connections. Like for me, my experience with creating my piece was like, what does migrant justice have and farm worker issues have anything to do with climate justice? Like this is not something that is like, oh duh, like this is totally connected. And this challenge really held space for me to like say, no, this is absolutely connected, and this is how it's connected, and I'm going to show you like why and how. So also like really maybe like also considering that as being another potential place from where to birth like a narrative, or from where to generate a story.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions out there?
I have one. So I was thinking with mine to kind of do like a photo series, especially like pictures I took when I was there last year, but trying to post it like onto my Instagram. Like, would that be a good way to do it? Because it's like, I know with doing your own personal account, that's not like pitching it to anybody, but maybe would that work?
Yeah, I would take you back to the questions that I outlined of like who it is that you want to see it. And if for you, the real answer is like, I want my Instagram followers to see this. Like this is who most matters to me right now and feels like my most powerful audience, then if that's true for you, then that's the best place to post it for sure.
Cool.
And I would also super encourage you to like also pitch it somewhere, just because it's a nice process of just like, oh, like I've never pitched any. I remember when I pitched my stuff, I'm like, oh, like it's a process that I had never even fathomed or like thought of going through. And like this challenge was asking me to like be brave and just going through the motions of like sending it out. And yeah, that's a good like just muscle builder for getting more comfortable and more familiar with like sending it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, because I sent an editorial out after I came home about something a little different, but I don't want to take up time, but I could explain later as to why they were opposed to doing an opinion article or a full like editorial, because I don't know, the local newspaper is really ridiculous. But yeah, I'll explain that later.
You made me think of something else, is that it's an editor or someone hosting a blog or even a Facebook page. It's definitely important for them to get original content. And so if you've already posted something to your social media or your personal blog, it's not that likely that someone's going to want to take it for somewhere else. So you could even think of this as like, what is my dream audience? And like go pitch to that dream audience, and then think about, if that doesn't work out, then be like, okay, who's my like second dream audience? And then go there. And also most editors and places that are kind of soliciting content, they want to know that you're writing with their audience in mind. So don't send them something that you've already written, because that to them shows that you're just sending it to kind of a whole bunch of places and hoping that it might land. They want to hear about how you're going to write specifically for their audience, and they want to be able to give you edits on your draft and like make sure that it really fits like their kind of outlet and their style and their readers, because as an editor they know them best.
It's like a corset.
How so?
They'll just tighten it a little bit.
Yeah.
To fit the trust of their audience.
So, is it Shana or Shauna? How do you pronounce it?
Dana.
Shana, it's a great question. I want to elaborate on the answer a little bit for everybody watching and everybody here.
Is this Daniel?
This is Daniel. Hi, everybody. What we're looking for the the selection process is we're looking for risk taking and effort, not the results that you get. Because you could make the best pitch, and for whatever random reason out of your control, it could be denied. Do you see what I'm saying? Whether or not an editor or a media outlet runs your story is ultimately not up to you. And so what we're looking for is effort. So if anyone in the challenge ends up posting a piece to your personal social media, which in and of itself can be a risk, but you did pitch a news outlet first, and you either didn't hear back or received a no. You took the effort if you made the pitch. So take a screenshot of the email you sent to them with the pitch and include it in what you sent, and share a little bit of the context. You can be like, for instance, if a person said, "I've never pitched to anyone before, but I did this time," and they said, well, they can't run it for whatever reason, so I posted it on a friend's blog, that effort will count for something, even if it didn't run. So I wanted to say that. And the other thing I wanted to say is, just to clarify, again, we said this last time, but if an editor accepts your piece, but it will be published after June 4th, that's okay. What you would send us is what anyone might send us is the screenshot saying, from newspaper or magazine X, we'll run your piece in July. Send us that, and send us a Google Doc or a private backend copy of the piece. That's also okay. So I just wanted to outline that for folks in case it helps.
What else? I see some curiosity on people's faces. What are we still curious about?
I have a question. What is your all's perspective on like Medium.com and places that are sort of a mix of like blog / open up to the whole world, and maybe you'll get like picked as a featured story or something? Is that something that you would like to see, or would you prefer if it's more like straight up pitching to different outlets, as opposed to like making your story the pitch by just putting it on the website?
Mm-hmm. I would say that Medium is a really great format by which to get your story out there. I think of it, it's almost similar to posting to your personal social media. I think if you're going to put it on Medium, like also share like how it is that you plan to get it in front of people's eyes. Like, cool. I'm going to ask pages to share it for me. Like, I'm going to ask my work to share it. I'm going to ask my university to share it, and cool. Create your own little campaign around how to get it out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a great skill, formatting a piece on Medium and making it look good. So that's a great thing to practice anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
I'll say one thing that in my experience, I pitched mine, and it got picked up on a blog, and I put it on my Medium account and put hashtags on it. And some page contacted me and said, "Whoa, this is great. Can we like repost it?" And so that then it got like reposted on their page. So that was also kind of cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Good question. And it could also be cool for, if there aren't questions in the room, to also share people's ideas about where you're going to pitch to help inspire one another. So either questions or ideas, welcome to share.
I had a more technical question, I guess, about submitting, and maybe this is for a different time, but I'm just curious, if we post on our personal social media and post on a blog, which is like a public blog, which is what I'm hoping to do. How do we pull those different things together and submit them to you by the Sunday deadline?
Out a little bit. Would you mind
And I don't know, maybe that's for a different time, and this is more storytelling, but.
No worries. If you just want to repeat it, it just cut out a little bit for me.
Sure, sorry. And I can call in if my audio is bad. I was just curious how we technically submit the different pieces of our story by the Sunday deadline.
So there's the submission form where there's a section where you can put in the link to what your submission is, because if it's going to be online somewhere, then you can just put in the link there. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if there are multiple links, like if it's on my personal social media and then on a public blog, I just put multiple links in.
Yeah, you can just put in multiple links in there, because it's just a Google form, so it will take as much as you want to put in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yes, we can email you all a link to the submission form.
And just to think about, if you post on your personal social media and it's not a public post, you might want to like screenshot it and upload that to Google Drive and send that link in so that Daniel and Aneesa can see it.
Yes, please do.
Yep.
If you forget, we'll just text you.
And yeah, great question, Claire. And just a heads up, the deadline is the end of the day on Monday. So you have all of the full weekend and all of Monday until Monday night to share it with us.
Great. Unless folks have other questions, or we do have time left. So if you have other burning questions as well that are not just storytelling related, feel free to take advantage of this time that we've set aside to ask them. Morgan, Niria, do you have anything else you want to add? We really appreciate you both hopping on this call to talk to us.
I'm here if you want to reach out. My email is on Sustain Us website, I think. But yeah, definitely reach out if you need support or just have any questions or points of clarity. I'm really excited for you guys saying yes to this process, and I look forward to seeing and reading your pieces at some point when Aneesa and Daniel, if you, they're gonna be public, right? So hopefully I see them on like The Guardian or something. No, I'm just playing. Yeah, I look forward to reading them, and be brave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also just congratulate everyone in advance on your courage in speaking up. And I think, yeah, telling our stories and telling the truth about why it is that we're standing up for a different world in this time is an incredible contribution. And yeah, to jump into this process and be willing to do that, I think just speaks volumes to each of your like commitment to this movement and this work, and also just consider me a resource. I'm super, super happy to answer any questions, to connect you to some of the editors that I know, to, yeah, anything that I can do to help. I just, yeah, really believe in this process and supporting people to get their stories out there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other random point I just wanted to make about just the technical stuff. The submission form has a few questions on it besides just posting the links. So, it says, if selected for COP24, what's one thing you'd like to do to the team? What do you see as one of your gifts you love to contribute to groups? Imagine it's the end of the COP and you're heading home. What's one thing you really would have wanted to do? So we do not, I just wanted to clarify the expectation. We do not need length answers to this. We do not need like the most technically edited, perfectly written. We're looking for or sentences to a couple of short paragraphs that just kind of gets to the heart of it. So you're putting a lot of time and energy into creating these pieces and getting them submitted. I would budget like half an hour to 45 minutes to answer the additional questions on the form, because they are really important questions, but I just want y'all folks to know that they're there on the submission form, and also know that we're not expecting you to spend hours and hours poring over those questions. You can just answer them briefly and simply. And I am going to chat here the link to that form just so everyone can see it for yourselves and know when you go ahead and apply. This is where you will go to do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. I guess that's beginning to close us out. If anyone sticks around, we will still be here for a few more minutes. Happy to help.
Talk through any other questions for us. Feel free to go ahead. And it's okay if there are no questions as well.
I just had a briefing for Niria.
Yes.
I am just curious whether, if your story is still online, if you could, and if you're comfortable doing this, post a link in the chat, because I'm really interested to see the connections that you drew between your community and another story. So if it's still online, I'd love to read it.
Yeah. Morgan's looking it up right now.
Okay. Thanks.
Let's see. It was.
I found it.
I titled it "The Climate Story of a Farm Worker's Daughter," and it's on the chat if you want to read it. There's also yes. Hit me up if you have questions.
Thanks. Yeah, this is great. Definitely.
Yeah, thank you for expressing interest. I'm kind of like blushing.
I mean, you talk so much about it, and
it was a process. It was a process.
I have to read it.
It was a process because like that whole season, I was like, like people are sitting in their offices with ACs, and they're like not. Then they're writing about climate change, and like meanwhile, like there's farm workers who are out there like really experiencing the effects of climate change, like moment by moment, like being outdoors and like losing wages when crops don't when they raw, or when like the climates aren't favorable to like healthy yields, and nobody's talking about it. So then I was like, nobody's talking about it, well, I can talk about it. So yeah, let me know what you think.
Awesome. Yay. I did have one quick question. Sorry. So with the Medium site, I don't know who was talking about that earlier, but is that like a site that you can just like randomly post stories on? So like that's one that you don't, that's a completely new outlet, but it's not like one that you would have to pitch per se.
No, you put it on your own page. You have agency over what goes on your newsfeed, but there's pages that have a following.
Okay.
And so you can pitch it to them or tag them or send it to them, and then they might hit you back and be like, hey, can we post it on it? We have like 19,000 followers, and that's like another way of reaching people.
Yeah, and then you could like hashtag it, so then like
you can hashtag it. I know some people have like buzz alerts when they get updates on what hash. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Ryan.
Y'all, in the background here is another Sustain Us storytelling superstar. Any words of wisdom for COP24 applicants doing the challenge, right?
Trust your stories, honor your passion, and support the fights that need to be heard about. Yay! I don't know, sorry, I'm just like sweaty and a mess, but y'all are great. You're amazing. Trust the process, trust yourselves. It's like incredible that you folks are here, and we're all at the heart of it trying to fight for the same world. So just really cheer you on, and like just see us as like dear friends, because we're in this fight together. Yay. Okay, I'm going to walk on now.
Thank you.
Oh, and if what Morgan has inspired you, if what Morgan has shared tonight has inspired you, know that so much of what this process is came from her vision for it. And if Niria has inspired you, Niria may be leading the next COP Sustainus COP delegation to Brazil in 2019, COP25 in Brazil, where Niria has done a lot of amazing community work. So stay tuned for her debut next year.
Oh my God. You heard it here first. This is news to me. No, it's not. We talked about it over the weekend, but yeah. Thanks, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks all for joining today. It was really nice to see all your faces, and
I can't hear you, Aneesa. I don't know if other people can. Oh.
hear me now?
Yes.
Very
I
faintly.
just have to really yell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just saying thanks to everyone who joined us on the call today. We really appreciated seeing you all finally. And yeah, thank you, Morgan and Niria, for sharing with us. We really appreciate you taking the time out to be here. And I'm sure that everyone learned a lot. Yeah, so we will be posting a recording of this on the Facebook page. If you didn't take notes because you were so mesmerized by the conversation, you can watch it, or and we'll also be posting the links that were sent out in the chat. And yeah, so feel free to, and remember, feel free to contact us at any point before and after June 4th about your work. Great. Daniel, anything you want to add?
Just thank you all so much. Just for the recording, was there anything in the first 5 or 10 minutes before the recording started that was critical you'd want to share, Aneesa?
I think the only parts that were missed in the recording were us all introducing ourselves. Yeah, so I'm Aneesa, Daniel just talked, and Morgan and Niria were the people talking about storytelling. Yeah, and so, yeah, I don't think anything else was really missed.
Sweet. Well, thank you to everyone that was here tonight, and thank you to all the future watchers of this recording.